It is September 7th, 2022. Time to look at the data that came out for the Albuquerque home sales in the greater Albuquerque area for August. So we're looking at the August data here. Let's walk through this. This is Tego, Venturi Realty Group, Keller Williams Realty. I've been doing these market reports for years now, and I will tell you this is an unusual time. Well, I think it's always unusual, but the thing that's going on right now is we have these really strong opposing forces. One is that we still have a very low number of homes on the market from an historical perspective, yet we have very high prices compared to historically as well. On top of just the sale prices, we have interest rates that are very high. So they're kind of opposing, but at the same time, we're kind of getting into this balanced place in the market. So let's take a look at that. So closed sales are down. We're down 20%, 21% basically from last year. You can see we had our peaks back here in 2020. Of course, it really dropped off at the beginning of 2020, but we had our peaks in 2020. We always have our valleys in the winter months, and then we peaked up again in 21, pulled back, and then peaked up again this year. And that's when we saw our total number of homes sold, if you look at it from an annual standpoint, peaked out in 2021, and we've been pulling back ever since. Right now, we're on an annual pace of around 12,500 homes or so. Probably end up a little bit lower than that by the time we get to the end of the year. Pending sales, I'm kind of going backwards here. So closed sales, now let's look at pending sales. These are down 16% from last year. You can see how that looks, over this 10-year chart here. Still healthy. Not again as strong as the 2 years previous, which were very healthy. I think we go back to somewhere probably 2017 to get to these levels. The point here is homes are still selling, right? And they're selling relatively quickly. So let's take a look at that. Days on market. If you look at this historically, median days on market, if we go back to 2012, really 2012 is when the market shifted from the buyer's market and starting to move back toward a seller's market. I mean, it was a long slog, don't get me wrong, but in 2012 is kind of when the home prices bottomed out in the Albuquerque area. But you can see median days was back 60, 70 days. Even in these what we would consider kind of healthy years of 17, 18, 19, we were still 30 days, but it was interesting because in 2019 we really started to see the market turn. This was pre-pandemic, remember. We knew that we were going into a strong seller's market, and then the pandemic and everything that affected housing at that time really kicked it into overdrive. And so what's happened now, just we're in August of 22, median days on market is 6 days for homes that closed in August, which means these are homes that went under contract probably June, July, something like that, meaning those homes, when they went under contract, half of them sold within 6 days. Average days is low as well. Little bit different metric, but that's 15 days. Now, what we're looking at here, these are homes that actually closed and sold. It's not looking at the homes that haven't sold. Overall, I don't have that chart here, but overall, the active days on market for the active inventory is still very low as well. But to be sure, there are homes that are sitting on the market, and we are seeing price reductions on homes. Not uncommon to see a surge in price reductions this time of year, but it's kind of plateaued here in the last few weeks. Sorry, I'm kind of getting off track there, but I thought it was interesting. So home for sale, let's take a look at that. This is the total number of homes on the market. You can see historically, again, back in these healthy years, 2017, let's see, if we go to August, there was 3,500. Let's see, August. And you can see actually August is usually the peak. Where is it? There it is, 3,300. And then in 2019, it was 2,600. And now we're sitting here at 1,200. So half of what we had in 2019, which was considered the last healthy year that we had. I want to break up something here on homes for sale because that's an important distinction. This is August number of homes for sale by price range. So we've got under 300 here in the blue, over 300 in the gold, and then all price ranges. So all price ranges were down 2.7% from up 2.7% from last year. So the number of homes on the market has increased from last year, still below 2020. The thing that's interesting here is you get under the 300,000, 42% decrease from 2021 and a 27% decrease from 2020. Of course, that's been made up in the over 300,000 price range, 30% increase from last year. Although, I want to break one more thing out here because I think it's an important distinction. This breaks out number of homes for sale, either resale, previously owned, to new construction. And previously owned actually decreased this year versus last year. And of course, last year was a decrease from the year before. The big surge in homes on the market just this August was new construction. New construction, the builders are starting to catch up. I was at an event here a week or so ago, talk with the new builders, and they're starting to catch up. They're starting to get more homes on the market. What was happening with new construction is, anything that they finished was sold immediately. So we're starting to see that build a little bit, still very low from a historical standpoint, but we are starting to see new homes come on the market. The challenge there is new homes are definitely more expensive than resales comparable. For the most part, of course, new homes has a whole bunch of other benefits, and I'm not going to get into that here right now. Okay, pricing. I think this is the big thing. Everybody wants to know what's going on with pricing, and we're looking at a 10-year chart, monthly data points of median sale price. Right now we are in August of 2022. We're up 12% from August of last year. However, you can see we peaked in May of this year at 336,000. And actually, I'm going to just filter out just the previously owned, because again, new construction, it kind of stands on its own in some ways. But if we look at the just resale homes in the greater Albuquerque area, we went from 330 in May. So those are homes that went under contract probably, March, April, something like that. And now we're at 315,000 as median price. Still very high. You can see historically. And before we call the top of the market in May and say, oh my gosh, it's going to start going down, it's not uncommon to see this kind of roll over this time of year where home prices peak out in spring, early spring, and then pull back through. And you can see that in the other years. It's not as exaggerated on this chart because we had such a big run up here in the last few years. So hard to tell where it's going to go. I mean, when we look at it from an inventory standpoint, like a month's supply of inventory, so this takes into account both supply versus demand, and we're still at a very, very low level, 1.1 months supply. I've seen an interesting chart, both for Albuquerque and nationally. There's rarely a time that home prices decline when there's less than 6 months supply of inventory. Right now we're at 1.1 month supply. Of course, that's just one data point, so you have to take it for what it's worth, but it's an interesting observation. And when we think about, but again, we go into the other thing, right? This kind of opposing force of thing, right? We have low supply, we still have demand. That should drive home prices higher. However, we have very high prices and high interest rates. So these opposing forces are going to fight it out here, it looks like, through the rest of the summer. Stay tuned. I watch what's going on weekly in the Albuquerque market. You can catch those reports here as well. If you have any questions, we're the Venturi Realty Group with Keller Williams Realty, 505-448-8888.